AOC. What? She's kind of fun in a silly but earnest, wrong but adorable way. She's like your daughter when she comes back from her first year at Brown, full of half-baked, half opinions, in need of some gentle, patient deprogramming. But people have to realize new faces doesn't mean new ideas. Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea.
More and more I'm seeing people on the right offering like some praise for her, like, oh, don't count out AOC. And she's a fighter because she seems to have some of the same base as Trump, people who want an outsider. Wake up, people. Wake up. She was 100% on the side of Jordan Neely here, throwing out all the racism accusations and all that her woke identity politics playbook. She is no friend to reason. So stop, okay? Just stop. The praise of AOC has to end from anybody who wants justice, wants reason, wants sanity to prevail, and isn't on the side of woke identity politics.
AOC believed that her most recent hot take would cause Twitter to erupt with emojis and cheers. Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld arrive with no chill and sarcastic receipts. What do they say that turned her viral moment into a verbal demolition? Oh, it's worse than Congress in a group chat. Gutfeld is making fun of her like it's open mic night at the Capitol. Megyn is dismantling her logic like IKEA furniture without instructions and AOC.
Drives me crazy. AOC has never introduced a fresh idea or issue in her life. The reason why she gets along with Bernie is because she's like an 80-year-old leftist in a used bookstore. I mean, she may look fresh, but she's as stale as an abandoned futon on the street. It's like, I listen to her, I go, I heard that at Berkeley in 1983.
She didn't stumble into a debate this time. Instead, it was a full-on, unprovoked public combustion. Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly didn't even need to raise their voices. They simply lit the match and watched the Green New Deal melt like it was made of biodegradable Jell-O under a tanning lamp. AOC just walked into another intellectual buzzsaw wearing a t-shirt that reads, "Tax the Rich," while sipping a $14 oat milk latte and attempting to explain economics with the assurance of a child.
Let's check in on AOC and see what she has to say.
Any quick reaction on what's going on with Elon Musk and President Trump on Twitter right now?
Oh, man, the girls are fighting, aren't they? I think this breakup we've been seeing a long time coming, but we'll see what the impacts are of it legislatively.
Okay. You're so cool referring to them as the girls. She's above it all, Ben. That's what she's trying to telegraph. You see, she's the adult in the room, the one out there who does a preacher accent, and she leans into her fake Latina accent. And she's the adult in the room.
First of all, let's be very clear. This was not a debate, discussion, or round table. Rather, it was more akin to witnessing someone bring a spoon to a flamethrower fight. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez opened her mouth somewhere in Washington, most likely close to a Whole Foods, and the sound of it reached two people who have a low threshold for economic fairy tales and even lower threshold for nonsense.
It's no surprise. Who would go see a movie that's the opposite of entertaining? There's nothing entertaining about that. Michael Moore's colonoscopy is more entertaining than that because there's probably more twists. But it does show you how great it is to be a progressive in a liberal biased culture. She really doesn't do her job, right? She makes movies, she goes to galas, she sits for glossy butt-kissing interviews in GQ and other women's mags. Once you get over the fact that you're hollow inside, it's not a bad life.
There's nothing entertaining about that movie, so it's not surprising that people would go see it. Michael Moore's colonoscopy is more entertaining than that because it probably has more twists, but it does demonstrate how wonderful it is to be a progressive in a liberally biased society. She doesn't actually do her job well. She makes films. It's not a bad life once you get past the fact that you're hollow on the inside. She travels to galas and sits for glossy but kissing interviews in magazines for ladies, such as GQ.
So their problem is, and the reason why they don't have any ideas is they operate on half opinions. Like, what if we get rid of cash bail? Oh, let's do it. What happens? You have repeat criminals wreaking havoc. What if we have sanctuary cities? Hey, let's do it. What happens? You have rapists and killers, finding sanctuary, safe haven. What if we give trans rights that we don't have? Well, you just ruin women's sports. You ruin safe spaces. You make kids' lives hell. But they never think about what their ideas incentivize. That would be nice. So where are their ideas going to come from? Trump.
Megyn Kelly brought the receipts, the sarcasm, and the energy of someone who has been waiting months to clap back at TikTok-level policy takes disguised as moral crusades. Greg Gutfeld, with the subtlety of a chainsaw in a library, took one look at AOC's latest plan and treated it with the same reverence most people reserve for expired coupons.
I read a little bit of the New York Times review, and Teo, he thinks that the hopelessness of the movie makes it a hard sell for people who would go see the movie, and also for voters to change their minds about climate change. But they said for AOC that she offers the best on-screen antidote to despair because she's funny, a canny political strategy. But they don't like it if conservatives are funny. Yeah. Right? It's only
that's
helpful
mean.
Right?
If a conservative is funny, that's mean. You're
right.
mean. You're being mean.
Her latest proposal, which was more of a Tumblr post from 2011 with more hashtags and logic, was based on the idea that the American economy would be much better if we just trusted the government to run it like a nonprofit yoga studio, forgetting incentive competition or innovation. It all began when AOC decided that this was the ideal time to redefine success in America by doing away with it completely. AOC's goal is to make the U.S. a collaborative effort in which everyone receives an A even when no one performs the work. Overview 7. Cue Greg Gutfeld, who viewed her economic theories as a physicist would see a flat earther's PowerPoint, looked at them with curiosity rather than anger. He said, "How can someone speak so confidently while being so alarmingly off base?" AOC's micro-universe, where rent is paid with emotions and inflation is really a social construct created by billionaires to make you feel bad, is the only answer. Megyn Kelly, however, did more than simply destroy AOC. She cooked her slowly over a fire fed by articles from a Harvard Business Review and her decades of life experience. Instead of shouting, Megyn used the verbal equivalent of setting down a glass of wine, adjusting her blazer, and calmly destroying any remaining credibility that AOC had. This wasn't loud, rather it was surgical, and here's the thing. Shouting implies that you think the other person might understand logic if you speak louder. The nice thing about it is that none of this necessitated directly responding to AOC. AOC's logic self-emulated upon contact with the mirror that Gutfeld and Kelly just held up. This was a "please sit quietly while the adults fix what you broke" situation, rather than a back and forth with no need for rebuttal or idea sharing.
This performance from AOC, who decided to go to the Bronx and pretend she was Cardi B. You're not Cardi B. You're not Muhammad Ali. You're a congressional Kardashian.
Consider her climate strategy. The notorious Green New Deal, sometimes referred to as the Great American Dream Killer, is more of a Pinterest board of well-intentioned delusions than a real strategy. The AOC wants to eliminate the use of fossil fuels and guarantee that everyone has access to high-paying jobs, free housing, health care, and economic security, even for those who are unwilling to work. However, that is not policy. That is a ransom note from someone who believes that monopoly money is legal tender. Gutfeld didn't even need to say much. He simply pointed to the section of the plan that forbids flying in favor of trains and then held up a map of the United States. He made a gesture towards the Pacific Ocean, saying, "Where's that bullet train from LA to Honolulu, Alex?" While it was performance art, Megyn Kelly calmly argued that Instagram graphs and vibes are insufficient to operate a first-world economy. Redistributing money doesn't suddenly create more of it. That's how economics works, yard sales do, and even then, you still need something worth selling. This is why socialism keeps failing in places like Venezuela, not because they didn't try hard enough.
This is the reason why you can't even compromise with temporary solutions. Because even if you give a temporary solution to a lefty, they're going to make it permanent. There's no such thing as temporary, whether it was mail-in ballots, or it's the moratorium. You give them and they go, "Oh, yeah, sure, and we'll get back to normal." No, they won't. Moratorium, they don't even know what that means. And we don't actually, I have to say, we don't talk about her at all. We talk about the stories, and we're always very, very respectful. I think she's incredibly talented, but she hasn't lived enough to be that arrogant in her wisdom.
However, AOC continues to promote the myth that every billionaire is a malicious dragon hoarding riches, and that the only thing preventing America from reaching utopia is a lack of political will, ignoring the dynamics of the market. Greg Gutfeld nearly choked on his own sarcasm when AOC proposed yet another government program funded by taxing the rich, which is the typical economic tactic of people who believe the Laffer curve is a new ride at Disney World. He had no knowledge of the debt deficit, the horrifying reality of funding trillion-dollar programs by hoping the IRS grows 6 new arms, and a thirst for vengeance. California would already be a socialist utopia rather than a dumpster fire wrapped in avocado toast if high taxes on the wealthy were the solution. But AOC is certain that poor policy isn't the issue. When your policies are as shaky as a tower of Jenga blocks built during an earthquake, it's easier to blame the critics than to acknowledge that your blueprint was drawn in crayon. This is why the American people simply aren't ready for her level of enlightenment in her world. The opposition isn't based on reason, data, or history. Rather, it's just sexism, racism, or some other convenient deflection.
We got just this week, well, last week before the inauguration, AOC saying, I'm not going to the inauguration because I don't support rapists. That is a defamatory statement. She didn't make clear that's opinion. She said it as though it were a matter of fact. It isn't. And I really think he should give some serious thought to suing her. She wasn't on the legislative floor. She was sitting in her apartment doing a little Instagram. You can't get away with that. A term like he's a rapist or he's committing potential treason in working with the Russians, like news organizations have just, and politicians for that matter, given up all the guardrails that we used to observe.
At this point, AOC's policy philosophy appears to be one of finding the worst idea in history, rebranding it with a pastel color scheme, then blaming white males when it fails. Gutfeld referred to her economic views as performance art with subtitles, which is generous. With her characteristic calm, yet deadly tone, Megyn Kelly pointed out that AOC's constant use of emotion is a front for her lack of understanding of how governance functions. Caring deeply is insufficient. Adults solve problems, and every time AOC attempts to solve one, she ends up making 3 more in a TikTok video about it. Watching AOC pitch trillion-dollar plans with the confidence of a drunk guy at an open mic night is the best argument for term limits, Gutfeld said, comparing her political career to pop-up shop here for attention, selling nothing of value, and disappearing the moment accountability shows up. While parroting the same elite bullshit that consistently fails them, AOC claims to speak for the working class. Her remedies are always some version of raising taxes, banning things, throwing government money at it, and then creating an Instagram video explaining why it's your fault that it didn't work. Megyn Kelly revealed that true progressives and reformers don't spend their days self-branding and posing in Vogue while feigning oppression. She wants a revolution, but she also wants Glossier to support it and deliver it in recyclable packaging. Megyn Kelly tore through that facade like a buzzsaw through papier mâché.
Now you heard that AOC, among others, were arrested last night. She truly is an American hero. It was brutal, taken out in cuffs. Well, technically, her shirt had cuffs. Maybe French cuffs, as she did surrender without fighting. But if her pants had cuffs, she would have pretended to be in leg irons, too. But real handcuffs, not so much. But that didn't stop her from pretending. And I hate it when people do this to me. When I ask people to put on handcuffs and they say, I'll just pretend I have them on, I'd be like, sure, and I'll pretend to pay you after.
The best part is that neither Gutfeld nor Kelly had to personally insult her. They simply let her record speak for itself. And honestly, that's enough. When the subject brings her own lighter fluid and jumps on the grill, it's enough. Gutfeld was spot on when he said that AOC is dangerous not because of her power, but because people treat her like she has any. As she dances around Capitol Hill like it's a reality show, actual adults are left trying to clean up the legislative glitter bomb she drops every time she opens her mouth. The entirety of AOC's political career is akin to a TED Talk delivered by someone having only recently learned about Wikipedia. It is impassioned, coherent, and not even near to Greg Gutfeld suggested that we all pitch in and get AOC a copy of Economics for Dummies Megyn as he concluded the episode. According to Kelly, make it a box set because clearly she's going to need a volume for each policy disaster she's dreamed up between her last brunch photo shoot and her next viral meltdown about capitalism oppressing her Wi-Fi. The rest of us can just sit back, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the sight of two seasoned minds doing what the internet rarely gets to see anymore, fact-checking nonsense until it disappears in a puff of TikTok smoke and ironic hashtags. No, AOC didn't debate them. She wasn't in the room, but her ideology was, and it got absolutely body slammed. This wasn't a disagreement, it was a demolition.
Then there's the true radical left, who's gone beyond all the identity issues. I mean, don't get me wrong, the person I'm going to show you is 100% wrapped in all of them, but like genuinely believes the Hitler fascist stuff, like is like distraught because they really think Hitler just got reelected. Most of them were just pretending, but then there are the ones who genuinely believe it, like AOC.
We are about to enter a political period that will have consequences for the rest of our lives. Donald Trump has talked about turning the military on U.S. citizens that he deems his domestic political enemies. Authoritarians and people that he affiliates closely with and strongmen abroad in regimes like that, it is not uncommon to jail political dissidents or legislative opponents.
One of the most prominent Democrats in America.
With her finger paint and blind optimism, AOC's political strategy is like watching a toddler attempt to pilot a Boeing 747. She creates grand narratives filled with buzzwords and throws them at the public like confetti at a failed parade. But underneath the glitz is Megyn's cold, unflinching lack of substance. While Gutfeld didn't bother to dress it up, he torched the facade with pure ridicule, pointing out the hilarious contradictions in AOC's crusade against capitalism while thriving under it. Her latest idea, nationalizing industries, is something she doesn't understand while pretending economic literacy is optional, and somehow her followers eat it up like it's gospel. However, Kelly didn't flinch. She dissected every flimsy proposal with surgical precision, exposing the empty calories of AOC's policy rhetoric. Emotion is not proof or performance. When you take away the carefully manicured pictures and emotional live feeds, politics is not leadership. What's left is a perplexing concoction of antiquated dogma and mistaken confidence, but despite the intellectual devastation left behind, AOC continues to go forward because there's always another filter to employ when the facts don't hold up. Another video that went viral, another echo chamber, ready to cheer.
When he's talking, when I'm picturing AOC lecturing us about our hamburgers, how we can't have them anymore, and we can't have heat in our homes, we can't have SUVs, and we can't, now the left wants us, we have to get rid of our gas stoves. It's a no. And so, like, they are very punitive. They want to control the way we live, of course, from their own private jets and mansions, which are, they're gas guzzling and energy guzzling by the minute. And he's feeling it. But I think this one goes beyond just the squad or leftist politicians.